To reintroduce myself, I'm Girish Mohile from CMB Regional Centers. I represent CMB in this market. And today I'm going to talk more about CMB Group 93, Hillwood Coachella Valley Build to Rent. But before we begin, and before we start talking more about the project, just to show of hands, how many of you already know about EB5 visa or at least have heard about EB5 visa? All right, quite a few people. But I'm again going to reiterate and explain to you what EB5 is, because this is the first presentation. We are going to have a couple of panels later in the day as well. So it makes sense for me to explain in brief what EB5 visa is. So EB5 visa is employment-based fifth preference category visa, which allows investors, main applicant, spouse, unmarried children below 21 years of age, once they invest in a qualifying business, the minimum investment being 800,000 US dollars, or the higher investment being $1,050,000 US dollars, to get permanent residency in the US. So that's what the premise of EB5 visa is. Now, why EB5 visa? So firstly, what are the qualifications or what are the qualifying factors required for someone to qualify for EB5 visa? Firstly, clean 800,000 US dollars. So you need to have clean source of funds. And secondly, no criminal record. So there is a step-by-step process where you run parallel with your immigration aspect and you run parallel with that with your investment aspect of things. That is where a regional center comes into picture. So CMB as a regional center has been functioning in EB5 space since 1997. So we were first designated as a regional center back in 1997. And across these 27 years, we have worked on 85 plus projects, meaning we have worked on all these qualifying offerings which will qualify each and every investor for EB5 visa or green card or permanent residency in the US. So just to give you some introduction regarding the people who are involved over here. So Mr. Patrick F. Hogan, he is the founder and CEO of CMB Regional Centers, and he has been into this EB5 space right from the beginning. So as a program, EB5 has been in existence since 1990. The regional center program came into existence since 1992, and CMB was first designated as regional center in 1997. So across all these years, the industry has seen many changes in terms of investment amount, in terms of how the adjudications are being done. But there are a few things which Pat was responsible for in terms of pioneering and bettering the EB5 component or few aspects of EB5 component. One of them being the loan model, and that is something which you are going to hear across the day for the next 2 days through panel discussions. But let me try to explain to you what loan model means. It's basically one of the models which are taken into consideration when your investment goes into any project. So that is something which was pioneered by Pat Hogan. And I'll explain the loan model to you later in the presentation. Ms. Noreen Hogan, she is the president of CMB Regional Centers. She runs day-to-day operations of the company now. So just talking about some stats, across these years, we have worked with 6,300 plus investors from 103 different countries. And when I say 6,300 plus, I'm not bloating the number. I'm not trying to extrapolate the number, including all the family members. These are actual applicants without considering the family members in that application. So we have worked with 6,000 plus investors in these 27 years. And EB5 being a step-by-step process, around 2,600 plus investors have been able to not just get their permanent green card, but also the return of capital as well. So the investment that you make, 800,000 US dollars, and 500,000 back in the days, there are 2,600 plus investors who have successfully received their capital back. And that is very important aspect when any prospective investor is trying to conduct due diligence into their EB5 investment. So these are few projects, the areas or the geographies where we had our previous projects. CMB actually began in California. So just to give you a background, CMB actually stands for California Military Base or Closed Military Base. So all these Second World War era military bases which were being shut in the 90s, the initial projects which were undertaken by CMB were in those areas. Now we expanded our presence across the board We have 6 regional center designations, which essentially allows us to operate in most of the US. Now, what is the first priority for any investor who is planning to invest in EB5 visa? The green card, right? So it's not a typical investment. Although it's called as an investment-based visa, it's very important to firstly differentiate between a traditional investment where the priority is for you to get return on your investment. So you're looking how much percentage I'm getting. But that is not true with any EB5 visa investment. So if you're looking for traditional returns, EB5 is not the correct route for you. The correct route, EB5 becomes a correct route for you only when you're planning to have a green card. So priority number 1, the green card. The second priority, return of your investment. So the 800,000 that you're putting in, you're expecting that investment to come back to you. And a distant third is return on your investment, which is going to be very small. Now, this is the loan model which I was talking about. So each investor is on the left side over here. So the investor ends up becoming a limited partner into a limited partnership. So Group 93, the project that we are talking about currently, will be that limited partnership. CMB becomes a general partner. And the whole business, the motive of that limited partnership is to be a lender. So this limited partnership will be lending funds to the borrower. Now, who is the borrower over here? And that becomes an important aspect as well. So one of the key players is the regional center, investor, of course. The third player is that developer. So is CMB a developer? No, we are not a developer. We act as a fiduciary on behalf of the investors. So we are fully invested in the idea of each investor getting the green card and the repayment of capital. Now, this borrower is going to have some kind of loan terms and conditions. Usually you will find that the loan tenure is around 5 years. Once the project is constructed, the project will be sold or refinanced, and the return of that loan is going to happen into that partnership. Once the return of loan happens, the money is with that partnership, and it will be given back to the investors because the jobs are created. Now, when I say jobs are created, what is the crux of you getting the green card? From an EB5 perspective, USCIS is the adjudicating authority. So, from a US standpoint, EB5 program is a job creation and an economic development program. So, from your perspective, while you're going ahead and investing in EB5 visa, you are essentially helping promote jobs or create those 10 full-time jobs within the US, and you are thereby helping with economic development in that particular region. So that's the exact priority in eyes of USCIS, whether those 10 jobs are being created in the first place or not. So this is the team that we have. One of our team members is over here, Mr. Vitali. And this is a very important slide. This slide is given the least importance, but I think this is very important. You need to know whom you are working with. And it's not that CMB is the only regional center around over here. You are going to hear from many people. But whom are you working with? And is the same guy doing the marketing job, the legal job, or someone who is working out of a shack and helping you out with your EB5 investment becomes very important. So we have 50 plus employees. We are headquartered in Dallas. We have a regional office in Rock Island. And there are other local representatives such as myself spread across the globe who are there to help you out with any questions that you may have. So some stats regarding the company as such. We have had 80 plus projects which are already approved. And the return of capital which I mentioned, we have 50 fully repaid partnerships out of those 80. Now the question would be, what happened to the rest of them? The rest of them are still within that life cycle of their investment. So they are still in the queue of getting the return of capital. Now what I am saying, you can of course trust me. I can say that you need to trust me. But that is not how EB5 investment works. We always encourage prospective investors to conduct their own due diligence. And one of the factors which becomes important is what I'm saying, what I'm presenting, what I'm quoting, whether it's backed by a third-party audit or not. So everything that I've said is mentioned in all our documents, and it's audited annually by Forvis, which is the third-party audit firm. On top of that, one thing about CMB has been that as of 2022, there is a new law which came into place Reforms and Integrity Act of 2022. So this has become a requirement. Previously, it was not a requirement, so getting all these audits done was optional. But CMB has been conducting audits starting 2014 for all the partnerships dating back to early 2000s and currently as well. So we were the thought leaders when it comes to any of these audits from a third party. Now, it's pretty much clear what CMB is into and what our role is. Let's talk about the developer. So the developer over here is Hillwood. It's actually part of the Perot family. It's construction arm of the Perot family. So Hillwood was established in 1988 by Mr. Ross Perot Jr. and since then they have established themselves in the US market in different regions. They also have foreign presence as well. Ross Perot Sr. actually ran for president's election back in the 90s and there is a history of successful businesses which they have carried out. So if you see over here, they established EDS back in 1962. It became a billion-dollar company. It was sold to GM in 1984. They established Perot Systems in 1988. They sold it to Dell in 2009. It was again a billion-dollar company. So Hillwood is their third billion-dollar enterprise. So they have had history when it comes to any successful business and they know how to achieve it. Now when it comes to Hillwood, what is their forte? What is their strength? They are established and they are experts in two asset classes. One being industrial and logistics projects and second being master plan community. So Group 93 is a master plan community which is built to rent. We'll talk about it later. Now few stats wherein Hillwood has served as the developer or a borrower, wherein CMB has served as the lender. So out of those 80 odd projects, around 40 projects have been the case where Hillwood was the borrower and they have successfully repaid back 25 of those loans. So this is a staggering, huge number. One of the things which we encourage prospective investors to do is to ask these stats and verify them. You will clearly know because you might be working with a good regional center with no experience with that borrower or the developer. So extra due diligence need to go into that project from your end. When you talk about these numbers, it means that the developer has worked with that particular regional center multiple times and they have a clear history of repayment every single time, on time, like clockwork. No delay in repayment of loan, no delay in repayment of quarterly interest as well. So out of those 6,000 plus investors, around 1,900 plus have gone into a Hillwood project and 600 plus have received their return of capital as well. So there is a good track record over here. Now coming to the project. What is exactly this particular project? So we are raising 32.8 million US dollars. So up to 41 available units, meaning 41 investors can come into this particular EB5 group. Group 93, Hillwood, Coachella, built to rent. So when you say built to rent, it's basically a community which is being constructed wherein the occupants are going to be the tenants who are going to pay rent once the community is up and going. This is the location. It's 2 hours away from Los Angeles. It's in Coachella Valley. The actual location is Thermal, California. And what are the demand drivers in this particular location? Because that is a very common question, that what makes this project attractive? Who is going to stay over here? So there are a lot of people. Firstly, this is in the Southern California region. So it's sort of warm. So as they call in the US, there are snowbirds who would like to shift to this particular location during winter time. Young families who already have a job, probably a remote job, who would like to shift to this location, retirees, and the location is very strategic when it comes to these kind of projects. And I'll show you what the demand for this kind of project is. Before that, what is the exact project? So 240 homes are going to be constructed in this particular location. The size of houses are going to be around 1,000 square feet to 2,400 square feet. And in this particular location, it's going to be single family homes. So each house is going to be independent in nature. And this is the exact location. So PGA West is over here. There are a couple of music festivals and art festivals which happen in this particular area. And this is a desert resort kind of location. So it's high in demand and This is the occupancy rate and this is the demand. So the occupancy rate over here is around 94.7%, meaning if something is constructed, it gets gobbled up or it gets occupied. So if you see quarter by quarter absorption rate, you will see over here that in quarter one, 173 units were absorbed, as compared to that in quarter two, 667 units were absorbed. Now this project obviously is going to have all the usual amenities which are part of any single family community as a build to rent community. And this is how the renderings are looking like. Currently the project is in initial stages. The construction timeline is from quarter 3 of 2024 to quarter 2 of 2026. So the first units are going to be available in quarter 3 of 2025 and the last unit for rent is going to be available in 2026. Now, Hillwood is having a joint venture partnership with Greystar. Now, if you just Google, you will find that Greystar is one of the biggest and leading real estate company wherein they have a penchant of taking over all these projects, all these properties, they hold those projects and then they refinance or sell them off after holding them for a good period of time. And that is exactly what is going to happen in this project as well. So, if you see over here, the construction timeline is starting 2024, it's going to run until 2026. So we are looking at a stabilization starting 27 to 2029. The loan which is being provided to Hillwood is for a period of 5 years. So we are expecting the return of loan in 2030. However, Greystar intends to hold on to that asset. So they are going to refinance Hillwood's component and they are going to run that asset for a longer period of time. That is how exactly the exit is going to be for the EB5 investors who are going to invest in this particular project. Now talking about those 10 full-time jobs, you require 10 full-time jobs per investor. We are looking at 41 investors. So the minimum number of jobs is 410, but we are looking at a buffer of 98.5%. So meaning each investor who is going to invest is actually going to be allotted around 19.9 jobs per investor as per our projections. Now what is the total project cost? The total project cost is 128 million US dollars. So there is a senior lender in place. JP Morgan is the senior lender over here. They are contributing 51% of those 128 million. So 65.8 million is a senior loan by JP Morgan. EB5 is obviously funding 32.8 million US dollars. And developer, which is Hillwood, is contributing 29.8 million US dollars. So even the capital stack is healthy. When it comes to these kind of projects, I think capital stack is something which is the first point of due diligence which you are looking at as to what is the exposure from an EB5 standpoint, what is the exposure from standpoint of the developer, and who is the senior lender. That becomes very important. You want to be careful as to who the senior lender is because sometimes the senior lenders are predatory in nature. So they would want to have access or they would want to foreclose on that asset if something goes wrong. So we are working with a vanilla lender over here. It's huge. We have had projects where JP Morgan has served as a senior lender in the past as well. And these are few collaterals which are in place. Mostly these collaterals don't clash with the collaterals which are with the senior lender. So all the collaterals which are placed with CMB Group 93 are independent in nature. They are mostly financial or economic in nature. So the interest that we have as a collateral is economic in nature. You will see that there is a completion guarantee to this project. There is a 100% distributions pledge, which means that once Hillwood exits, all the money which is going to come is going to be placed into a separate distributions pledge agreement account. What this means is Group 93 as a limited partnership has the first priority rights to that account. Hillwood cannot take a single penny out of that account without us knowing about it because we have the first priority rights. The same goes to any cash flow. If $1 is earned as a net cash flow, 50 cents are stored into that cash flow pledge account, wherein CMB has, Group 93 has the first priority rights. So these are few collaterals which are in place. Now obviously, we have a lot to talk about this project. Our booth is A01. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can visit our booth and you can have my business card as well. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak in front of you. Thank you, IREX, and thank you all for being here. Thank you so much.